Hi everybody, Logan with Enduro Engineering. Today we're going to show you how to install the skid plate on a KTM 790 Adventure. Alright, we're going to show you what you're going to need to install your 790 skid plate. In your package you're going to have the skid plate. You're going to have 3 6x20 button head Allen bolts. You're going to have 8 6x16 bolts, 2 6x12, 2 6x20 bolts, 5 6x25 bolts. You're going to have 2 nylon lock nuts. You're going to have an L-shaped bracket, and then you're going to have 2 brackets for the rear of the skid plate. What you're going to need to supply is an 8mm T-handle or socket, a T30 Torx wrench, a T45 Torx wrench, a 4mm Allen wrench, and you will need a 10mm open end or closed end wrench. Okay, step number 1, you're going to want to remove these plastic side covers. You've got 2 T30 Torx bolts right here in the front, and then coming around to the side there's a bolt here, but you're not going to want to touch that. That's just holding a rubber bumper inside of the gas tank. And then down here you've got another T30 Torx, and on the back side of it is a nut. That's where you're going to need your 10mm wrench. So you can start on any one of these bolts and just pull those out. Again, you've got the 2 in the front. Okay, once you get those 3 bolts removed, you're not going to need those bolts anymore, so you can set those off to the side. This is now loose, but the rubber bumper is inside the gas tank. So what you're going to want to do is just slide this straight down, and then it comes right off. Okay, now that we removed the left side plastic cover, we're going to move to the right side of the bike. It's the exact same setup that you have. It's the 2 T30 Torx bolts in the front, and the 1 T30 Torx bolt on the side with the 10mm nut on the back side. So just go ahead and do the same process that you did on the left side. And again, once you got all the bolts out, just go ahead and grab the plastic cover and slide it straight down. Okay, now that you have both of your side plastic covers off, the next step is going to be removing these 4 8mm bolts. You're going to take your 8mm and remove both of them from the left side. Then you're going to move over to the right side and remove these 2 as well. Okay, once you've removed all 4 bolts on the front, you're going to want to move to the underside of the skid plate. There's 2 8mm bolts right here. So take your 8mm T-handle or socket. Go ahead and remove these 2 bolts. Once those 2 bolts are removed, the stock skid plate is now loose and you can pull it right off. Okay, your next step is going to be to take the stock skid plate and you're going to want to remove this bracket right here. This is the bumper for up against the frame. So you go ahead and flip it over. There's 3 8mm bolts that you're going to want to remove. Just take your 8mm T-handle. Go ahead and remove all 3. Okay, so you're going to want to take this bumper that you took off the stock skid plate, grab the 3 button head bolts that are supplied by Enduro Engineering, line it up with the 3 holes on the bottom of the Enduro Engineering skid plate, get all those started. And you're going to want to take your 4mm Allen, tighten all those 3 down. Okay, your next step is going to be going back to the bike. On the left side you have your kickstand. If you're using a bench like we are here, you're going to want to press your kickstand down. If you've just got it on the side stand, it'll already be down anyway. But you're going to want to remove this Torx bolt right here. You're going to use your T45 and go ahead and remove that bolt. On the back side of that bolt is a washer, and you're going to want to pull that out as well. You will not need this washer again, but you will need to reuse this bolt. Okay, moving over to the right side or the brake pedal side, you're going to remove the very bottom Torx bolt. Again, it's a T45. Go ahead and remove that one as well. And again, there's a washer on the back side. Again, you're not going to need the washer, but you will need to reuse the bolt. Okay, again on the right side or the brake pedal side, you're going to take one of these triangular brackets, and the spacer that you pulled out of there, you're going to replace with the bracket. Get that lined up, the bolt that you pulled out, get it started, but do not tighten it at this time, just leave it loose. Okay, moving over to the shifter side or the left side of the bike, take the other triangular bracket and replace that spacer that you pulled out. The bolt that you pulled out on this side, go ahead and reuse it. And again, just get it started, that way you keep it loose. Okay, your next step is going to be, you're going to want to grab your Enduro Engineering skid plate, hold it up in place, and grab 4 of the 6x16 bolts. And you're going to want to start with the triangle shaped brackets that you just installed on the last step. So you've got 2 on each bracket. Go ahead and get those started on both sides, but don't tighten them down quite yet. Okay, now that you've got those 4 bolts started in the back, you can see everything's loose. That way we can rock it up. Then the next step's going to be take your 6x12 bolts and start them in the 2 center bolts on the bottom of the bike. Again, don't tighten these down yet. That's going to be a step later on. Okay, the next step is you're going to want to take the L-shaped bracket that's in your packet along with one of the 6x20 bolts. We're going to be on the left side of the bike or the shifter side. There's going to be a threaded insert on the skid plate. If you're on the right side, there's a slot. That's how you know the difference. But take the L-shaped bracket, have it on the outside of the skid plate, take the bolt, and then insert it into the threaded insert. That way the curve of the L-shaped bracket almost curves upwards. If you've got it curving down, you've got it on backwards. Okay, the next step, you've got the 4 bolts on the front of the skid plate. So go ahead and take your M6x16s and start those all by hand. So again, just get all these started by hand, but don't tighten them quite yet. Okay, now that you've got all your bolts started by hand, take your 8mm T-handle or your socket and go ahead and tighten all 4 in the front. We're going to start in the front and then work our way back. And then working back, you've got the 2 bolts underneath. Go ahead and tighten those down now too. Okay, you've got the other 6 mounting bolts tightened up. Move back to the brackets that you installed underneath the foot pegs and go ahead and tighten those 8mm up first. And then once you've got those tight, take your T45 again and tighten these Torx bolts on the side. We got the left side tight here, and then go ahead and move to the right side, do the same thing. Okay, next you're going to take those plastic covers that you took off at the beginning of the process. You're going to line that rubber bumper up in the gas tank and slide that into place. I would start with the front of the bike and take your 2 6x25 bolts. You can get them started into the threaded inserts of the skid plate. And then go ahead, take your 6x20 bolt along with your 10mm nylon lock nut, and that's going to go down on the side. You can get everything started by hand first before going through and tightening them down. Okay, now that you got your right side plastic cover on, you can move over to the left side. Again, get the rubber bumper into the gas tank. Slide it up. Take your 6x25 bolts and get them started in the front. And now that you got your front bolts started by hand on this plastic cover, this is where you had the L-shaped bracket. It's still loose, that way you can line it up. We use this L-shaped bracket so that you can remove just this side cover and get to your oil filter for maintenance on your bike. So go ahead and take your 6x25 bolt, get it lined up with the L-shaped bracket, take your 10mm nylon lock nut and get that started. Now that all the bolts are started, go ahead and take your 10mm wrench along with your 8mm T-handle or socket, and you can tighten this side piece down. And once that's tight, go ahead and move to the front and tighten those down as well. Now that you've got all three bolts on the plastic cover tightened, don't forget to go through and tighten the bolt holding on the L-shaped bracket. And then once you got all this tight, go ahead to the right side and repeat the process. Okay, now you've got your Enduro Engineering skid plate installed on your KTM 790 Adventure. It's going to hold up a lot better than the stock one would, being a lot thicker aluminum. It's going to hold up to a lot more abuse. Give us a call at 517-393-2421 or visit EnduroENG.com to order yours today.